Hey, what's up, everybody? It's your girl, Aida. I can't even say my own name right. Aida Rodriguez, and welcome to another episode of Truth Serum. I want to say thank you. As always, I start my show with gratitude to all of you that show up constantly and participate in the conversation. You share the streams, you tell other people about what we're talking about here, because here we want to talk about things that affect people of color, Black people, and from the perspective of Black people and people of color, which I think is very important and missing in a lot of spaces that call themselves media houses. So with that, I just want to say thank you. I know that there's some pressing news, things that have been happening in the headlines. I've been a bit disconnected. I understand that there's been another attack on the Capitol, and which is horrible. They've had quite the year at the Capitol, and to constantly be in a space to always be worried about your safety is, very reminiscent of what it's like to be a Black or brown person in this country. And so I want to extend, good wishes and vibes in that direction. And I hope that that those officers that were attacked are doing okay and recovering. I want to turn the conversation today to talk about something that's very important to artists and Black people and people of color in general. When we talk about art, we have these conversations on social media now. When you don't like something or when you criticize something, you're considered a hater. And quite honestly, I think it's very important for us to honor those who critics that critique our art, because that's how we raise the bar and we raise the standard. And it's been happening in art forever, since the beginning of time. And it's interesting when you hear the pushback now, and people will call it racial, but I think it's also generational. I remember when the singer Lana, I forget her last name, pushed back on a critic and threw all of her followers on these critics who were covering her album. And so I want to have this conversation about Black and brown art. We are so, we're so artistic. We contribute greatly to this economy and many economies throughout the world. We provide people with entertainment in excellent ways, from sports to music to film, television, visual art. We are participating in multi-million-dollar industries where people are so rich from the art that we give so freely from ourselves. And I think it is important that we honor the entire spectrum of art, and that includes those who are critics. So today, joining me, I have the co-founder, there are 6, of the African American Critics Association, president and co-founder, a friend of mine and a friend of Truth Serum, Gil Robertson. And we have Kathia Woods, who is also a critic that's a member of the African American Association, Film Critics Association, and an independent critic on her own, a fellow Afro-Latina, Kathia Woods.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me.
I appreciate you being here, and I want to get into it because one of the things that I saw when Black AF came out was that there was a commentary that was made and directed at Black critics. And, it's damaging to those people who are the people who this is their crafts, this is their job, this is their art, is to look at art from the most honest ways and say, this is where it can be better, this is where it's great, this is where it's not great. It happens in all art. And I want to talk about it from the most honest place. But the first thing that I want to talk about is, Gil, how does your organization come about? How does that happen? What is it that you have to do and say? Where do you get to a point where you say we have to create our own because it's not happening outside of here?
Wow. Thank you, Ida, for doing this. Are we on camera or are they just hearing our voices?
No, they can see you.
Oh, they can see us. Okay. Well, the organization is actually 18 years old. We started in 2003, in the late summer, fall of 2003. And at the time, I think there were 6 members, the original co-founders. And so, as the story goes, we were the press corps that covers arts and entertainment is a small one, and those journalists who cover movies specifically is even a smaller group of people. And then when you break it down to Blacks who are sort of on that circuit, it becomes even smaller. And so at that time, there was a feeling amongst all of us to one degree or another about having access to the type of high profile opportunities that allow you to grow a successful career. And to explain that further, when you are working as an entertainment journalist, your bread and butter, how you pay the rent, how you pay your bills is directly tied into your ability to have access to certain projects and certain talent. And if you're not able to get that access, then your opportunities dwindle, meaning your sources of revenue. So it's critical that if you are looking to create a life for yourself as a film critic or A&E journalist, that you have an equal shot at getting those opportunities that really translate into bread and butter. And so there were of the very small group of critics and A&E journalists who were on the scene at that time, felt that we needed to come together in order to drive home our concerns and to really, demand that we receive the same level of access that journalists from other communities were receiving. And so that's how we were started.
So, Kathia, you are a woman. You are a Black woman. You're Afro-Latina. You are an intersection of many things, and you are a critic. Tell me how that happens. What makes you say this is what I want to do? And please explain what your job is, because I think a lot of people don't realize that what you do is a career, and it is, a journalist, and it is, critical thinking. There's so many things that go into what you're doing, and it is a specific job. So I would love for you to just first welcome and thank you for being here. And then I want you to let people know what it is that you do and why you do it.
Well, my journey didn't start with film. My journey started with hip hop. I'm that generation where we took what was like an underground thing and it became a sustainable thing. I still remember I worked in a record shop. I just happened to be that person. I know that's a foreign thing for some of you. And I knew not just about hip hop, but also music in general. I'm like a music head. Mm-hmm. And I started in the 70s, 80s, 90s. But at that moment, hip hop was just not being taken serious. So what I would do is I would set up displays and things like that. My first hip hop album was LL Cool J Radio, right? So he would have something come out and I would move all this stuff and I would talk to people about it. And then as the genre grew, people were and people would come in and ask for me and I would point them in the right direction. Now, fast forward, I got to college and I was writing for a little news thing. It was something that we just shared amongst each other in a community, and that kind of grew. I, like a lot of people, because I wasn't sure. I went to college, I spent money, then ended up working in corporate America for a long time, but I still always on the side wrote about music and went to events and things like that. And oddly enough, I was at a publication and the person that was supposed to cover film, I don't know what happened, they just stopped showing up. And my editor was like, hey, we have deadline. Can you go do it? It's not that much different than reviewing music. Same idea. You either think it's good or not, and you write why it's not. And that's how I got into music. I got into movies, and I've been doing movies for 4 years. I started my own platform because I really got tired of pitching for certain editors, especially when it came to women's issues, when it came to about the disparity or uplifting female artists. It was always a hard fight. She had to come with so much more than the men. And also, a lot of people didn't want to write about important issues because they didn't want to sever their relationships with the label. So I really got, because I'm like, are we journalists or are we fans, right? So I started my platform, even the radio for 8 years, internet radio, and where I featured artists and the whole nine thing. But the idea that this is the biggest misconception that people have, whether you cover music or you cover film, that you get to party with the stars. These people are not our friends. We don't hang out. Like once in a while you get to build a friendship, but it takes a lot of time, and there's a fine line, because then you have to remember, okay, this is reporting and then this is personal, right? And you kind of like have to be like, hey, just a heads up, I just want to let you know, I'm going to cover this. I'm going to write about this so you don't get sidelined, because that's your job. But I think the biggest misconception that you make millions of dollars, that you get jetted all over the world and you're on, like, I don't know, some party boat drinking Cristal and doing all of that. No, our lives are 1000% different. This is a career because, again, you'd have to take it serious. You have to be credible, not afraid to say you don't like something. You know what I mean? Not afraid to say, I don't feel this is good for the culture. But also, as you stated, be open to the fact that the talent may push back. I don't have a problem with that. That is your art. That's something that you invested money into it. And if someone like me says, oh, I mean, I don't use trash, but this is not, I don't see the value in this, or this is not something that is good. You have every right to say, I don't agree with your point of view. I mean, the conversation is a two-way conversation. And to me, it's like, as long as you keep it respectful, you aren't personal, because again, we don't know these people. I don't care about your marriage. I don't care what you're doing with your kids. That is none of my business. And I also like that I get to do something that I love, get to cover something that I'm passionate about, but I get to also be in my life. I like going to the supermarket. I like having that anonymity, for lack of a better word, but it's definitely a job. I mean, I think it's a little bit easier to get into it. The point of entry is a little bit easier because you can start your own platform. But the thing that Gil is talking about is still very much liable today, which is the access. And the access is hard whether you're covering, for lack of a better word, white entertainment or Black. Just because I'm Black or just because I'm Latina doesn't mean like, hey, pull up. It doesn't work that way. You have to earn your way. And even once you're in, for us, we have very little room to have, how can I say this, to fail, because we got to think about those behind us and those next to us.
Mm-hmm. So Gil, you have AFCA, and you are specializing in art that is created and crafted by people of color, Black people. How supported do you feel by the artist community in terms of valuing what the importance and the significance of this is?
The artist community?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
I mean, I would definitely say that it just depends on the artist that you're, I mean, people are different. Mm-hmm. Overall, I think, unfortunately, a lot of Black and brown artists are place greater value on white gaze than they do attention and support and respect from their own. And that's a big problem, that they don't seem to covet what, at the end of the day, is going to be what keeps their careers alive. And so it just is what it is. That's something that's a very fundamental thing that exists inside of all of us. Do I like myself? Do I like who I am? Do I like the community that I'm a part of? And I don't know. I don't know how you teach someone that. It's just something that has to sort of come from within. Either you have it, either you have that love and respect for yourself, or you don't. Yeah. So that's certainly a challenge, because, I mean, for the most part, a lot of the behaviors and attitudes that exist, within the industry are, to some degree, we're responsible for, because, Black and brown talent, to a large degree, they dictate the terms. And if they're placing a priority around engagement and interaction with Black and brown journalists and media professionals, then so with their reps and handlers. So, and so when their careers falter, or when opportunities don't quite come, and they wonder why. I mean, all they really need to do is sadly look in the mirror, because they didn't place the premium where it needed to be, with a group of people, a population of media professionals who are going to be with them at the beginning, during the middle, during that moment, and also, as things cool down.
Yeah, you know what's funny? What I was thinking about is people ask us why we get political, why are we being political, and they don't realize that being in Black and brown skin is a political statement unto itself. We show up political because if you get a job and it's per Meghan McCain, it's affirmative action. They're giving you the job just because you're a woman or because you're Black and brown, when she's basking in the privilege of who her father was. But it's just a very interesting thing that people don't realize, that just showing up is a political statement. Now you want to do something that is that has been stereotypically considered to be a white thing, right? Because critics you see the food critics on TV and in movies, and you see the movie critic, and you see the critic at the play with the girl is scared because the critic is in the audience, and they're always white and they're usually men. And so now we're having this broader conversation about how important it is to criticize our art, and some people push back at it. Jay-Z, for example, says, as for the critics, I don't get it. Everybody can tell you how to do it, but they never did it. And it's always this idea that if you are rendering your critique of something, and a critique versus a criticism, those are two different things. When you are rendering your critique of it, it's perceived as being negative because that the artist doesn't like it. But isn't that how we raise the bar, Kathia, of art, is by being able to say, you can improve this is problematic, and so on?
Yeah, I'm like, as long as you stay on the facts. The problem is that a lot of people make it personal. Do you know what I mean? If it's, whether it's music or film, right? If you're telling me this is supposed to be uplifting to women and the film is sexist, it's calling us out of our name, yeah, I'm going to say, how is this uplifting to women? This, that, and the third is not complimentary to women. As a woman, I'm telling you, I did not feel cherished. I did not feel respected. I'm giving you examples why I feel the way that I do. I'm not just saying, oh, this stinks. A lot of people do that. That's lazy. So I think as long as you are on subject, right? I am not talking about, oh, you were out last night with this young thing. Now we're into something else. But I do think, again, as long as you back it up with examples, right? And I always say that to artists, if you're telling us you made the art, I'm going to take you at your word that this is about X, Y, and Z. And I'm sitting there and I'm reviewing my notes, you know what I mean? And I'm sitting there and I'm shaking my head and I'm going like, okay, maybe this was your intent, but the execution doesn't go with what you're saying. And I think that's where we come in. And on the same token, we also are the champions, as Gil says, for a lot of these folks that wouldn't get a byline if it wasn't for someone like us. We're the ones saying, hey, this person has been in this business X amount of years, or this person has been dope since such and such and such. And we bring up the different pieces of work, but people don't like to talk about that. You know what I mean? And we fight. Like I said, is when I worked for publications, it was a constant fight to get certain people coverage. You know what I mean? It was almost like one of those things where I stopped asking for permission. I started asking for forgiveness because I was like, bunk it. I'm going to write it. I'm going to shoot the pictures. I'm going to do everything. I'm going to present it in such a way that you can't resist it. You know what I mean? And that's what a lot of people don't know. That's the work that we're doing behind the scenes. Now, if you're a Black person working at a white publication, man, you have it even harder because, like Gil says, they don't see the value in us. They don't, or you having to sit there in a room when people describe our work in super disrespectful way, using terminologies and words, and you're just sitting there like, really? Like, you're really going to do this in 2021 and you see me sitting here and you think I'm just supposed to be like kiki and ha-ha with you. that's the part that can be draining. But I think it's worth the fight, you know what I mean? And I think, again, if you keep it professional and you make a valid case, then you know, then that's perfectly okay.
Yeah, that only happened to me one time, very, very, very early. I think maybe my second room, and it was quickly corrected, and it never happened again. We weren't going to live in that space. We weren't going to live with that energy. And fortunately, we didn't have to, you know. But yeah, I can't even. I've heard about it, and that's one of the reasons why we, you know, started AFCA, because I had a situation like that happen, and you know, I had just had to put the brakes on. I was like, I mean, as it was happening, I was like, in my head, I was like, really? And just, you know, really just had to just give it voice. Like, no, what you do and talk about amongst yourself is good, but you're not about to disrespect me for 1 second and think I'm not going to say something about it. Mm-hmm. So hopefully, I mean, during those days, there were maybe just 1 or 2 of us, you know, in the building. And hopefully, because of AFCA, we now have 90 members and counting. Hopefully, because of our presence, Black and brown journalists don't have to feel that way when they're in those spaces.
So the African American Film Critics Association, you said, has 90 members as of now. What is the selection process for these members? How do we become a member of AFCA?
Well, they have to demonstrate their ability as a film critic and a journalist. The criteria is on our website in terms of their frequency of delivering, creating content. And then those applications are vetted by our selection committee. And, you know, a decision is made, and they're sent an invitation to join. Mm-hmm. And our membership calendar period starts in June. And so it's a year calendar period starting in June of every year. So if you apply early and you don't hear from us, don't worry. We will get to you, and your membership will start, you know, in late spring, early summer.
Can you, either of you, and both of you can answer, have you ever encountered a project that you covered that no one was talking about, and you could not for the life of you understand why not, because it was a great piece of art, and because of your coverage or your participation and taking a look at it, were able to bring it to a greater audience because of it?
Yeah. I mean, I love that. I like being first. I like breaking things. We were at Tribeca. God, my time off is with this pandemic, my years are so off. I mean, something might have been last year, now feels like 10 years. I'm going to say it was 3 years ago at Tribeca. Burning Cane by Philip Human. I asked for an interview before I saw the film. I don't know why. I can't give you a rhyme or reason. There was something about him that just said, this is something I should be watching, right? So we're at Tribeca, and I had to fight to get into the screening, right? So I like stand up for myself. I get into the screening and watch the film. And I tweeted when I got out, I said, I'm not quite sure what I saw, but I know it's special, and we're going to be hearing from this young man. So it was myself and Robert Daniels, who also happens to be in AFCA. He then tweeted back and said, I was at the screening too. Interviewed him. I saw it, I want to say, on Thursday, and interviewed him on Sunday. The publicist gave me a half an hour because she was just trying to get his name out there. And then Robert interviewed him too. And I want to say he ended up winning a prize at Tribeca. I put it on my website, told everybody, watch out, watch out, watch out for this guy. And then before you know it, Ava snatched him up. But I have the receipts. I talked about him before Ava snatched up. And it wasn't until Ava snatched him up that the mainstream media gave this kid his own opportunity. Like, she literally had to walk him through. But none of the mainstream media was writing about him. None of them were. They were just like, oh, they thought of him as some 19-year-old kid that had this little school project. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
And but yeah, you know, also the other one is Jonathan Majors. We saw Last Black Man in San Francisco. Nobody was talking about Jonathan Majors. He was out here working. He was in White Boy Rick. Nobody was writing about him. And then we were like, you did. I'm like, remember this name. You know, I was like, tongue in cheek. I'm starting the Jonathan Majors fan club. You guys better get aboard, you know. And now with Lovecraft Country, The Five Bloods, a bunch of other things, people are finally like click, 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 click. But that's our job, I feel like. It's our job to say, you know what? Just like other people want to talk about whoever, you know, Jennifer Lawrence or whatever, and God bless them. I think it's our job to say, keep your eyes on this person. This person is amazing. We have now X amount of projects. And I also feel like if the film had more money behind it, he probably would have gotten nominated. His performance is really, really moving in that film. But yeah, I mean, those are two moments that I can think of.
What about you, Gil?
Oh my God.
I know you got
Yeah.
the list.
In 20 plus years, yeah, there have been numerous. But most recently with Judas and the Black Messiah, the studio came to us and stated that it wasn't largely, but certainly that we contributed, you know, to the fact that it has gone on to enjoy so much mainstream success with other awards bodies, most notably AMPAS, the group that gives the Academy Award. So we're very, very happy that in selecting them as our best picture, and also Daniel Kaluuya and Dominic Fishback, that it might have added to its shine, and it might have actually, you know, in a tight situation, you know, made the difference in which direction people ultimately voted in. So we'll see what happens when, I mean, it's been nominated, but now, you know, it has to get past it has to get the rest of the way. But there have been, I mean, one of the things that has enabled me to build a career, a really sustainable career, is the fact that when I was actively writing, I contributed to a number of careers that are now riding high. And I mean, I would take one interview, and I worked for so many different outlets, I would just spread it across the field. So that 45 minutes, an hour you would spend with me would end up paying off in terms of 5, 6, 7, 8 write-ups in everything from a Vibe to an Essence to an LA Sentinel to a Word Up to just tick, 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 tick. You know, I mean, when I believed in someone and when I felt that they valued what I was bringing, I would go all in for it. And subsequently, those folks, a number of them, have definitely paid it back and forward in continuing to support me in my various endeavors. So it's been a good thing.
You know, it's funny because I've been involved with a few of the AFCA events, and I'm new to the AFCA world and family, but I do see some notable people that I think, you know, not just show up, but they show up like they fully show up. Like you can tell the people who are just phoning it in, and they're just making sure they're doing their due diligence because they don't want the smoke, right? But then yeah, but you can tell the people who are really there because they're like, this is home. And, you know, one of the things that I've always been very conscious of as an artist is that a lot of times they do try to sequester you away from your own. Once you start mainstreaming, they start trying to separate you and fill you with this message that you're not like them, you're special and you're different. But then when they chew you up and spit you out, then you don't have a home because now you can't go home and they don't want you anymore. And we all know that everybody in Hollywood has an expiration date, regardless of race. And then you add you add the, you know, the factors of being Black, and then or being a woman, or being LGBTQIA plus, all of those factors, and that your expiration date gets closer and closer, and then you don't have a place to go because they really told you you were different and you were special and you didn't have to answer that to them anymore. So it's really refreshing to see people show up for the AFCA Awards fully present and saying, I have gratitude because of y'all, I am, and that's important.
You really want to just tell them, please don't do it. Don't do it. Don't do it.
Yeah.
I have seen over a quarter century that I've been in this space, I have seen so many careers come and go. I mean, to have a career that has longevity is a true rarity. And some Black and brown talent, they play themselves, they get played over and over and over again, just like you described, Ida. And it's like, you know, you just now, you know, with my gray hair, I just look at them and go, boo. You saw me at the beginning, you're gonna interact with me in the middle, and you're probably gonna interact. I'm probably gonna still be the only person you're interacting with when it's over.
Mm-hmm.
But unless you play me when you're there, because at that point, I mean, you know, that'll dictate how I respond to you moving forward. And it's just, to those of you who are out there who are listening to this, respect the media professionals who literally fight for you. I mean, there are a couple of actors, I won't say who they are, who the only reason why they appeared in mainstream big publications that gave them the level of visibility that became a game changer is because one of those editors reached out to me to ask, what do you think? And sought out my endorsement. And not to say that I'm the only person that they, sought out a recommendation from, but I certainly contributed to that decision. And, you know, I've run into those people on subsequent occasions, and it's been like no response. They don't know, of course, that you behind the scenes have made a move on their, in their favor. But it's like, stop being so silly. And we do it. We advocate, as Kathia has said, listed over and over and over again. And here you will walk into a room and run right over to a group of journalists or media people that have no connection, nothing in common with you.
I mean,
it's so sad.
You know, it's like it's like I gotta fight with your publicist. I gotta fight with this editor. I mean, I'm fighting all day long, and you're gonna give me a hard time. Like, what is wrong with you? You know? And
I'm the only one fighting for you.
Exactly. People really don't understand. And even in Black spaces, I want to be very clear. To get you 2 pages is not like, oh, I mean, unless you are like Denzel Washington or somebody like that, to be like, hey, it is worth it. Do the 2 pages. I'm telling you, it's going to pay off. That conversation is such a hard one to have. You know what I mean? And I always, again, I'm not going to name names either, but I always raise my eyebrows when I see people talking about blackness this, and then your whole team is white, family, like everybody. And I'm just like, okay, I know what time it is, you know what I mean? But I do think there needs to be like a little bit of a reality check. And the other thing too is the part that people don't get. A lot of these folks that are like, I'm going to be at such and such and such outlet. And then when you flip through the outlet, your little box is so small. Or if you're on the website, right? You literally have to put your name in there. And then you are like all the way, you know, there's like 3 little lines just so you can tell.
It's a half inch. They'll give you, you're getting a half inch in people. Whereas the Black outlet was offering you a full feature or a cover. And you're like, dude, you just got played, because you will never get that opportunity again if certain people have anything to do with it. You've
Yeah.
disrespected me. You've disrespected this publication. Boo, I am good. You're not paying my bills.
No. And again, it's like, it's just so you can, like exactly what Gil said, you got that little line so you can run around and tell people I was in People magazine. Meanwhile, everybody's looking through the publication and they're like, where are
you?
Exactly. But it's this need to, it's, again, we as a community, and I get it to a certain part, but also we as a community need to have a come to Jesus and be like, listen, do you rather be in front of the people that are making you a star or keeping you in front, the people that pay to see the tickets to come see you, whether you're in a play, or the people that have the Twitter party or whatever it is to keep your name out there? Meanwhile, you killing yourself. You can't even get into half these parties of the people that you're trying to see because they don't see your value. Mm-hmm. So it's really like you have to have a come to Jesus conversation with them because it's crazy.
And and for the artists, it's an interesting decision because, I mean, the reality is that, and they have to, as in every aspect of life in this country, when you're a Black or brown person, I mean, the reality is just that you have to work a little bit harder. And so I get it. If you're in People magazine, if you're in Time magazine, if you're in the New York Times, it offers you a level of visibility that empowers your agent and members of your team to perhaps get a bigger asking price, to perhaps get a better endorsement deal. We get it. Bottom line, though, our publications, we're at the front line to the audience that is going to support you in those endeavors. Without them, those offers are going to disappear. Mm-hmm. So to the Black and brown talent, it's unfair, but the reality is that you've got to give equal to both sides because you're not going to have one without the other. Mm-hmm. I mean, mainstream movies and the creators of mainstream movies and TV shows aren't hiring you for their daughters to put your poster up on their walls. They're hiring you so that little girls, that Kathia's daughter is putting your poster up, not for someone else who doesn't look like Kathia's daughter to do so. Be very, very clear in your understanding that the audience, that you need to serve both, but that if you have to pick and choose, what is going to make the difference is whether or not can they count on Kathia's daughter going to buy your movie, mm-hmm. buy your record, mm-hmm. go to your concert. They don't want their daughters there anyway. So wake up.
That's on facts.
Huh. The other thing too, we have to remember the magazines when we grew up or when we were at the hairdressers or at the barbershop were Ebony, Jet, and Essence. So for me, a sign of making it was in being either one of the three, because that's what my community read. No matter where I went, that was always on the coffee table, whether it was your grandmother's house, your auntie's house, your church people's house, that what was there. Occasionally you would see a People magazine or whatever, but if it like somebody said, like for my grandmother, if you weren't in one of those three, you weren't famous.
Yeah,
it didn't exist. You know what I mean? Or if you weren't on Soul Train as a musical artist, okay, that's cute, but you're not on Soul Train. So I think that's exactly what Gil is talking about. Like, we disseminate information differently, So I mean, that's just a fact. Your heart springs a little bit bigger as a woman, as a Black woman. Essence magazine wants me to do something. Okay, let's go. Right.
Yeah, my first time writing for Essence and Ebony was just like a dream. It was just, I mean, you sort of felt like you had hit the mountaintop as a Black journalist to get that opportunity. A publication that literally was read in your home, and that your parents, took out that yearly subscription, and it was something that you were intimately familiar with. And to see your byline, and it definitely was priceless. It was very, very rewarding. So yeah.
I reminisce. look, I grew up with my Puerto Rican family because I didn't grow up with my Dominican side, but I grew up with my Puerto Rican family, and I read Essence. We had Vanidades and Essence, and we had, a variety of magazines. But for me, I always looked to see who was on the cover of Ebony and the cover of Essence, because they were closer to the people in my family and what we looked like than what was on the cover of even the Latino magazines, where they had a bunch of white people that happened to be Latinx. And so, just to speak to that, is like, even with listen, I covered as a comedian, sometimes they call us so that we can do red carpet events and interview people with a comedic spin. There's a very big Latina actress, very successful, who shall not be named, that was on the red carpet of this movie that was a mainstream movie. This Latina woman has worked for years prior to making it mainstream. Actually, it was a Black person who put her in his productions that made her the name that she is. And all of these media people came from Central America, South America. They came just to interview her because she was on the red carpet of a big movie, and they finally said, "That's us. We made it." And she would not grant them an interview, so much that one of the journalists started crying on the red carpet. And it's so funny because I was like, I didn't even ask for her to come over, because I saw her and one of the white women in this movie. They were totally just being so disrespectful to the media on that red carpet. One of them was like, "I don't do red carpet interviews." And I was like, "Bitch, why are you here then? Like, why are you standing on the red carpet then? You want people to take pictures of you, but you don't want to extend the courtesy of having a conversation with these journalists." But there was
not understanding how that translates, that 15-minute, that 5-minute interview literally is paying somebody's bills.
Yeah.
That might be the difference between the lights going on or off. I mean, but you know what? The pendulum has a way of swinging in both directions. So,
but what I was going to say is a big time, he was one of the biggest actors in the time, white guy. I was like, "Hey, will you give me an interview?" And he was like, "Sure." He walked right over, gave me an interview, shouted out the troops that were abroad. And I was like, God dang it, Fergie made a good choice. Look at her husband, right? John. And I'm standing there like, and just talk to everybody in this little this little section that everybody kept walking past. The people who look like the people in this section kept walking past, and this white guy, and to this day I don't know if that was good PR training or if that was just his humanity or him being, you know what, these people are all here too. But whatever it was just such a telling moment for me, because I was like, that ain't gonna never be me. No, that ain't gonna never be me. I'm always gonna be.
Isn't it eye-opening though? I mean, I'm always like, and you want to say it's like you're standing there and you're going, oh. Or the one that I really love being Latina is when people assume you either don't speak Spanish, you don't speak Portuguese, and then they're like, oh. I said, you never asked me if I spoke one or the other, if I could speak to your talent. I mean, why would I make you struggle in English when we can do it in Spanish or Portuguese where it's smoother? Like, what kind of sense does that make? That doesn't even look good. But it's the assumption that you aren't, or that you're not, and then it's the hustle backwards. Well, where are you from? Oh, that is like you're some kind of unicorn or whatever. But I do agree with you. It is the education that we get out there on the carpet is like, okay. Well, and then the person complains. Nobody saw the movie. Nobody came and supported, but you didn't talk to nobody.
Yeah.
Yeah, the very people you talked to, that interview was tossed because because when it went back into the C-suite at that outlet, the producers didn't prioritize it. They took the same folks that they always took, and while you ignored this one, that one, and the other to get to that place that you thought was going to send you to the promised land, ultimately it was decided, no, we're not going to use it.
All
Mm.
the time.
So
Yeah.
all the time. But the one person I've got to give a shout out to, and I can mention this person's name, is Halle Berry, who very famously, at the literal height of her celebrity, coming off of the Oscar, was walking down a red carpet. And I've never worked a red carpet, but as the story goes, Bill Jones, the legendary Bill Jones, who was a very noted photographer that shot all the photos that you would see in Jet. And apparently, because Bill was at this point was very old and extremely frail, and was never a big guy. He was a short man to begin with, and got pushed way to the back. It was just a no factor.
Mhm.
Well, Miss Berry, and I'm calling her Miss Berry to give her that respect, saw him. He said, Hallie, and she saw him, and she stopped the entire line and told them to get back and let Mr. Jones take the pictures that he needed to take. She understood that when I was trying to get a photo, that Mr. Jones was taking them. So again, going back to what I've been talking about over the beginning, the middle, and the end. And I forever will, I mean, she's always is just someone that we will hold at the highest because she gets it.
Oh,
And
I
that
love. No. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
and the action she took that night was an action that I really wish that more of her peers would adopt into their repertoire.
I love her, and I've always I saw that, because it was, and then she did it again. It went a viral
She's
moment.
consistent in her behavior. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
listen, it just was real. And I tell you, I'm going to talk about one, Justin Simeon. And he ended up I did a story for him for the Philadelphia Tribune, which is our Black newspaper here in Philadelphia. And they ended up giving him a 2-page spread. Two things. I was only supposed to have 20 minutes. He extended our time to 30 minutes. He said, I'm really enjoying this interview. I feel like you're like the first person today that I spoke to that saw me. And I was like, wow, right? And then when I sent everything, like the digital, and then I did my best, like my little cheapo photography of the paper, because I wanted him to see, like, it wasn't just in online, but it was also on the paper. And I have to say, I'm still old school. It's thrilling to see your name in a newspaper, especially when it's your hometown. And people that might never read my other stuff were like, girl, I saw your name in the paper. That's still cool. He sent me a really nice note, and he said, I really appreciate it. You kept the integrity of the interview, and I'm shocked that I got 2 pages. I appreciate you. So that really makes me like always want to go out and make sure I cover his stuff, because it's a reciprocal. I respect artists. When you write, they say, hey, I'm on the cover of XYZ magazine, and this is the journalist that interviewed you. This is my photographer, stylist, all of these people, because like Gil said, that gives you professional integrity, equity, and that enables you to eat more and bigger, because they're like, oh, Angela Bassett mentioned so-and-so mentioned, like Halle Berry mentioned Gil. So, oh, let me see who this Gil person is, because Halle shouted him out. And all that stuff really, really, it's nice to see more actors and directors or whatever saying, hey, I sat down with this person and it was a good thing.
Well, I remember Tupac saying, it said in an interview that I was one of his favorite. This was obviously I'm dating myself, that I was one of his favorite interviews. I was shocked. I mean, this is going back a while, but one of the things, because I know we're running low on time, that I'm so proud of is the existence of Kathia. I mean, Ida knows me well enough to know that I'm very much about the diversity that exists within our community. And as an Afro-Latina, as a woman who's Brazilian, I'm so glad that you have been so steadfast and loyal in your membership in our organization, and also recruited Ruben from the Dominican Republic, who's now a member. When we first started out, we had an Afro-Latino guy who was in the group for a minute before his life went in different directions, and he got out of the game. But and then also Clayton, who is now the editor at the Hollywood, at Variety, the awards editor, a proud Puerto Rican man. And so it's just such a thrill, because it's really a realization of this is who we are, and that Black people, as Aida says, come in on every shade and every complexion and hair type, and the difference in culture is just perhaps because my ancestors got off the boat before yours.
Yep.
So let's stop the madness. So no, thank you, Kathia.
No, thank you. I just want to say too, I'm a member of what some people consider more toady-toy organization. I don't.
Don't say it more important.
And, I don't. It is what it is, But this is home. I keep joking and saying the family reunion is going to be amazing, right? There's a different type of camaraderie when we get together as AFCA members. Last time we all got together, we were at the bar until like 2:00 in the morning, just chit-chatting about life. And, not being like sloppy drunk or whatever, but we were because you don't get to see each other like that and to speak. Like, I'm always happy to walk into a jungle and like, oh, thank God, there are other Black people. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's going to be, I am not the token Black person, the national spokesperson for all Black people. And it's also the thing I want people to pay attention to with these roundtables.
And not even just the only Black, the Latin person in the room, you'd be doing the Asian person, because there ain't no people of color. So then the people of color start to come together, because we got to be together, because it's
hard for everybody. And you know what? We be in each other's DMs like, did you get this? Did you get that? That's the email. But I will say this, I need people to pay attention at these roundtables. Yes, I'm going to shamelessly plug us. Thank you. Look at all this melanin around here. And we don't coach nobody. We don't got that kind of strength to be like, hey, make sure you say you shout out all the Black people. And people just say it. It's so nice to see it, because they know we are not going to ask them to speak for all Black. We are actually going to ask you, well, how are you doing today? How does this work? And how is this going with your career and everything? Like, I think it's criminal that Delroy Lindo not getting his flowers. Like, of course, we are giving them to him. But they're going to wait until this man is 110 years old, deaf and blind, barely can hear the thank yous before they give him his flowers. Why did we have to wait until Cicely Tyson was 92 years old? And thank God she was lucid and she was able to be in the moment. But this idea that we have to wait until one person got a foot in the grave before we give them their flowers, that's got to stop.
Katia, I would say that, and what she's talking about is a product that we have called the AFCA Roundtable, which started because of COVID. And what they know is that we're invested in their careers. We're not just reading the top line on the sheet, but we know a lot about who they are. And as you've seen in some of the interviews roundtables that we've done, we've done close to 100 in the last year. They are talking to people who are from the same town they're from, and if so, went to the same high school.
Yeah,
I have a brother that went to this, and so they're talking. It's a different relationship. It's on every level. It's different. So the level of respect, the level of energy that you're going to get is just going to be so totally different.
And it should be respected. And Nicole, no, it is not Eva Mendes. I'm not going to let that go out there like that. Gabriel Morgan, thank you for listening. Tanaj, I love you back. And Chris, I agree with you. We do need solidarity as people of color. I do want to say on this show specifically, I do not want to leave without thanking Arnold Turner for being the first photographer to put me on the wire. And it was Malcolm X's daughter, Miss Atala Shabazz, who guided me through the red carpet and took care of me, because I was out there by myself, and the white women who were doing the PR were ignoring me because they didn't think that I was significant enough. And I'll tell you that it was it was really telling for me about what the red carpet experience was going to be like, because you are out there from the perspective of an artist, and if they don't think you are important enough, you just standing there and they taking pictures of the white girl in front of you, the white guy behind you, and if you don't learn to look for the people who look like you on the red carpet, you will be lonely the whole way, the entire way. And so Arnold was the one that said, I know who that is, and has always made. Rosie Cordero wrote stories about me when I was on Last Comic Standing. So when I'm on Netflix, of course I'm going to do her story. And before, I remember people will say to me, oh, don't talk to them, they're just a blogger. And then those people become editors and become, writers on big publications. And if God is not a respecter of persons, why should I be, right? So I get on the red carpet, and the white women who dealt with me in the last few years, they know who they are. It's a nightmare, because I'm always like, where are my people at? Where are my people at? And they're like, no, you got to go. No, I'm going over here, and then I'll go over there. And I'm a complete nightmare, because they're like,
I love it.
Yeah, Arnold is a warrior. Arnold, we fought a lot of battles together, and Arnold is a dear friend, and Arnold deserves a shout out.
No,
he's a good guy.
Yeah, no, and I'll tell you this, and I will say there's a major award show. It's a minority driven show. I see the white PR people on the red carpet handling the media and prioritizing white media at a Black award show and mistreating talent that they don't know because they don't know. And I saw Anthony Hamilton be disrespected on the red carpet, and I was like, how is this possible? He was performing at that show, and I was like, we have to take a hold. We got to take a hold. We got to say we have to take care of our own, because if we don't, they won't.
The other thing too is, and I think it's being on the red carpet, you have to be prepared. You get a tip sheet. You know who's nominated before you even hit the carpet, because they have a whole situation for nominations at these award shows. It is absolutely disgusting when I see our counterparts showing up, not even with a camera crew. It's like a phone, and it's kind of half-assed. And then they want to like search your brain for, how do I say a person's name? It's your responsibility. We have social media. We have YouTube videos before you even hit that carpet to learn how to say someone's name. And you know what? If you're really not sure before you hit roll, when in doubt, ask the person. I think people would rather you ask than just to be calling them any old thing. I was actually on the carpet when Kiki Lane and Sanaa Lathan the guy kept during the entire interview with Sanaa Lathan kept calling her Kiki. It kept trying to talk to her about Beale Street. And finally she had to say, I'm Sanaa, and no, I was not in that movie. I'm just like, really? And I'm like, sir, you have a tip sheet in your hand, and you still are with pictures and names, and you still calling her something else. I almost thought, I said, she's going to be done. She is going to be done. She's going to leave this carpet. I'm not getting this interview. But luckily she was like, all right, next, and we ended up having a good moment. But I do think that's something else, I mean, it doesn't matter if someone doesn't know who you are. The publicist gave you a tip sheet. They said, this is Aida. She's a comedian. This is her resume. 1, 2, 3. Hello, Aida. How are you? And then let's get into talking about you. You never know that we didn't know. You know what I mean? The whole idea is to make you feel as comfortable and as seen as anybody else.
Welcome. And I'll tell you this, as a Latina woman, the people who always seek me out on the red carpet are always Black American. They've always included me. They've always seen away from me. I mean, I've been a part of the AFCA events. It's always the Black journalists that say, we see you. We saw you on They Ready. We saw you on Last Comic Standing. We saw you on Shaq All-Star. Those are the ones. And it sometimes even the Latinos don't even acknowledge me for the same reason. They'll ask me, like, how did you learn how to speak Spanish? And I'm like, my mama taught me just like yours, bitch. What you mean how I learned how to speak Spanish?
That's the word.
they've said to me, oh, I just thought you were a light-skinned Black girl. And I'm like, you can be both. Like, you could be both in 2020.
You're not speaking with an accent. I'm like, okay, and there's nothing wrong for having an accent. Like, own your accent, stand in your truth. But they expect you to, I don't know what this is. And you're just like, good Lord.
Yeah.
You just are like, Jesus, take the wheel, because it's a lot,
So the real critic says thank you for you two for being here and spitting. Laura, I thank you for watching. I appreciate you. Chris, peace and blessings to you. And that guy, Mike, no, it was not J-Lo. So I'm not going to let the rumors go out wrongly about people that J-Lo got her own PR issues, but I'm not going to put this one on her too. But I just want to say, I want to extend a big thank you to you both, because I just think this is important as an artist that we honor our critics, because the Sistine Chapel, the Thinker, the Gates of Hell have all been criticized and are still standing. And I think that is because of the critics that our art has longevity and speaks for us long after we're gone. And so I want to always uphold those that honor our art by giving it the honest eye and setting a bar and standard for us, because we're no less than anybody else and we should be excellent just like everyone else.
Absolutely.
Kathia, can you tell people where they can find you?
Well, you can find most of my writings at cupofsoulshow.com. You can find me on Twitter at Kathia_Woods. I'm the same girl on everything. So, I keep it simple.
She's fire on Twitter. And, Gil, we have something coming up, so please make sure you let people know where they can watch.
Absolutely. The AFCA Awards will be airing on Saturday at April 17th at 6 p.m. Pacific on Fox Soul. And you will also be able to find a smaller version of it on the AFCA channel, which is on Comcast Xfinity, about a half-hour cut of the show, the highlights from the show. That features Aida presenting the Best Ensemble Award to the men of One Night in Miami, which she does along with Shirley Ralph.
Yeah, and I love Shirley Ralph, and ironically, I just thought about the award show being on the 17th. I did not ask Gil to be here to promote the show. I asked Gil to be here a long time ago, and then we talked about me doing the show because I thought it was important. I wanted to make sure that people understand what we do here. But the other thing is Gil is always providing you with the best food when you are participating in his events. The best chocolates, the best food. It's always an elite affair. So that whole thing that our stuff is always subpar and it's always, second rate is so far from the truth when it comes to Gil Robertson and AFCA. I appreciate all of you who tuned in today, and thank you. Please continue to share this. We will not do well as a community until all of us do well, right? None of us are going to win unless all of us win. And I think it's important for us to seek solidarity. I want to thank everybody who always watches Truth Serum. I have my regulars and people show up. We got good numbers. People keep sharing the message, and we're going to keep doing it because I love us and I won't stop. So have a beautiful weekend, and we'll see you next week. Thank you for being here.
Thank
you, Aida.
I love you guys.
Kathia.
Thank you.
Love
so
you
much.
too.
Happy Easter.